one becomes a little, at least in my experience, a little used to serving and practicing in the absence of the spiritual master, in the sense of after he's left this world. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi Ki Jai. So, at least I can say for myself, by my own experience, that there's the tendency to adjust and, like I said, get used to the spiritual master not being physically present. What year was it? How long ago was it that he passed? 3 years. 3 years. I remember when Srila Prabhupada left this world. At first, it was when we found out, when I was told myself personally, it was just sort of a very unreal type of experience, like it cannot be. It was emotionally and in all sorts of ways, it was just an overwhelming experience. Completely overwhelming. It was amazing. So much emotion. But then generally, as time goes on, it becomes less like that. We just had Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja, just a matter of days ago, more or less, a couple of weeks ago or something like that. And of course it's quite an experience, but it's not like that first Vyasa Puja after Prabhupada left this world, my Lord. It was just amazing. Especially one devotee, Tribhuvanath Prabhu, very nice devotee, disciple of Prabhupada. He read one offering of one devotee who had served Srila Prabhupada personally, like personal assistant. And what he described, his offering was, he was recounting what, and do that, so many different things he would do personally. And it was a very amazing experience emotionally for everyone there. It was a gathering, probably about the same number of devotees as we have here today. But everyone was just in tears, remembering Srila Prabhupada and feeling the loss of Srila Prabhupada. But then as time goes on, one adjusts. One gets used to it. I don't know how else to put it exactly. But there's a very important point. Very important point. It's one of the most important points in Krishna consciousness in a sort of ultimate sense. And that is that service and separation from the spiritual master after the physical disappearance of the spiritual master, service and separation is said to be the most wonderful, the most blissful, the most ecstatic, the deepest, where there's the greatest realization and the greatest feeling of being in the relationship. Although the spiritual master has physically departed, but if you had told us, disciples of Prabhupada at that time, just shortly after the departure of Srila Prabhupada, that actually this is the most blissful thing. We would have said, no, it's not. Absolutely, we would have said there's no question of that. Just no question. But rather it's the most, well, even you could say distressing experience to live in separation. Yes, but like I said, after a while we sort of get used to it. And the fact is that at least if one gets used to it in a spiritual way and not in a material way, material way would mean like, I think so many of us, maybe all of us, but plenty of us, have lost our parents. I've lost my biological parents some years ago. I'm sure so many of us have lost our parents and others who were close to us materially, who were not devotees. And there's some emotions there, particularly when those who materially were very close to you. It's an emotional experience. But then, there's a saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. But then there's another little saying, out of sight, out of mind. Which is it? Well, on the material level, it's not possible to capture everything really accurately and properly. But generally after, say, that your parents depart or whoever else who was close to you, then you just kind of forget about it, or, it's less prominent in your sort of daily thinking, the patterns of your daily thinking, and the emotions just, they reduce, and eventually they may not be there very much at all, or maybe even not at all. But that's with people who we have material types of relationships with, people who are not devotees. But now here we're talking about relationships with people who are devotees, and not just like devotees, like general devotees, but the most significant devotee in our lives. So, at first, for some time, there's this, at least my experience again, overwhelming, overpowering emotional aspect to it all. It's just quite incredible, actually. But then if one practices Krishna consciousness nicely, as nicely as one can, if one really chants as nicely as one can, if one really tries to chant attentively and practice attentively and really try to give one's heart in Krishna consciousness, then the point that relationships and separation are the most blissful, the most ecstatic, the deepest and the most wonderful, gradually that can become apparent. It can become more apparent once we've kind of stabilized to some degree after the immediate departure. And my own experience with Srila Prabhupada is it's like that. Now, of course, well, that was 77. Prabhupada departed. Here we are, 2023. However many years it is. It's almost 50 years, isn't it? It's more than 40. Well over 46 or something. Many years have passed. But there's a type of richness. Then it becomes apparent that in a higher sense, he hasn't departed. He's still here with us. And we feel it more and more. He's still here with me in truth, as a person, not just as a memory or something like that, but he's with me. And of course, I'm sure many of you are aware, Srila Prabhupada himself was asked on a few occasions, how have you done what you've done, spreading Krishna consciousness all around the world? How have you done this on your own? And Srila Prabhupada, every time he was asked that, Srila Prabhupada would always say, I am never alone. My spiritual master is always with me. He's right next to me. That was his realization. That was his experience, that was the reality. And not just, just like in the sense of a memory or a sentiment, but a very sort of objectively real experience. Even I've mentioned it before, but when Nelson Mandela first visited the Radharanath temple, not long after he was released from prison, so he came and visited the temple, and I was the one who showed him around. And we sat down in the temple, Radharanath temple, and sort of like where I'm sitting right now, you could say, Prabhupada over there, the altars over here, and Nelson Mandela, I had explained a little how Prabhupada had spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. He came to South Africa, but he went everywhere, and the impact he had, and how many thousands and thousands of people he influenced and just changed their lives, turned their lives upside down. And Nelson Mandela, just about the first thing he said in response to my saying that was, how did he do it on his own? Really, that's what he said. And so then I explained the point I was just making. Prabhupada knew that he was never alone. And so there was never that sort of, that isolation, I'm the only one, in front of millions of non-devotees who are just kind of in different worlds altogether. Prabhupada didn't feel like that. He was always full of vigor and full of confidence in the presence, transcendental presence of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his spiritual master. So for the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, now it's coming up to 50 years. In 27, it's only 4 years away. It's going to be 50 years. And of course, we'll celebrate that. So for us, Prabhupada's disciples, it's really been a long time. I think some of you here are not even 46 years old yet. So Maharaj, Bhakti Chura Maharaj, departed 3 years ago. the wounds are still, still sort of exposed and a little raw, not as much probably as they were actually 3 years ago, but, I've been there, I know what it feels like. But in due course, the more you're able to internalize the relationship, and, in the beginning it's sort of, well, you could say theoretical, or, he's still here, he's still with us, he hasn't, really gone exactly, but he's still with us. At first it's a bit, theoretical, and even though we've heard it before, to digest it and really assimilate it and take it in and actually become solidly fixed like that, it takes a while. But at least, we all, you all, we need to, initially it's an acceptance in principle that yes, this is what our scriptures say, this is what Srila Prabhupada said, this is what Srila Bhakti Churu Maharaj himself said. So it's kind of like accepting something which you haven't really quite got a grip on yet, but because you heard it many times from reliable sources, that it is true, it's like that, and we must work on accepting and adjusting and realizing this fact, realization. The word realize and realization, interesting little word if you just think about it. Realize means real eyes. And realization means it's a realization. And means it's real. It's no longer just a theory or some sort of philosophical truth which we know we're meant to accept these things, so we basically accept them. But actually it becomes real, really real, truly real. And then one finds that instead of it being these types of occasions being kind of sad and from time to time or however often feeling sad and feeling a loss, but it is actually a blissful situation. It's a wonderful situation. I mean, wouldn't it be terrible if we never saw him again? Wouldn't it just be, what? Unbelievable. But we're all going to be together again with Bhakti Churu Maharaj, with Srila Prabhupada, with Kadamba Kanana Maharaj, with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and various others who are very dear to us, but who have departed. We're all going to be together again. And I mean, not just under these circumstances, but we're all going to be together in Goloka Vrindavan forever. And it's going to be much better than it ever was, even at its best, when the physical presences were all there. Yeah. So in that sense, there's something really to look forward to. But really the main thing, it's so important to accept the idea and to really sort of have faith in it and believe in it, that he's still here with us. And that if I keep serving him and serving in ISKCON, which he was so, you could say, proud of being a member of, or just so deeply appreciative of being a member of. Yeah. To really internalize that and really have that become like sort of the foundational element, aspect of your consciousness of him. Not that he's departed, but that he's still here. And that's the main thing. And not that he's departed and he's not here, and that's the main thing. And we're trying to think, that maybe he's not departed. But actually the fact that he hasn't departed, and the fact that he's with us on the level of the heart, on the level of service, when that fact really becomes, you could say, sort of cemented in our hearts, something like that, then, separation becomes the highest ecstasy. It is our philosophy, actually. Lord Chaitanya said that. Srila Prabhupada said that. It is our philosophy. It is the truth of Krishna consciousness. And it's just us to get our consciousness to really adjust to that, really 100% or 108%. And then it becomes ecstatic and wonderful and just so blissful and joyful. It's incredible. Yeah. And that's the case that's the experience of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada generally. Of course, sometimes there's feelings of separation, but so much of the time the feeling of being in the presence and being inspired, being really inspired to serve Srila Prabhupada and feeling his presence like that. So work on it. 3 years, it may still be a bit of a work in progress, I don't know. But keep at it and you'll get there. And when you get there and you're serving in separation, but at the same time not actually really in separation, you're feeling his presence and so happy to be connected, feeling the connection. Life becomes ecstatic, and you can do a lot more in Krishna consciousness than you were able to do before. A lot more and a lot better, quantitatively and qualitatively. So I remember when Maharaj first came, others, Parthasarathi Maharaj was saying, we heard that he invited Bhakti Churu Maharaj. I don't know when it was exactly, but I know I invited him. I think 1988. If I remember correctly, 1988 was the first year I attended the GBC meetings in Mayapur. But that's early in the year, like sort of February, March. And some of you would remember when he actually came, but it was late. It was, I think, was it like spring? Any of you remember? Anyway, it was after that. And Madhavi Prabhu, I heard him say there was some frustrations, some feeling of the need for help. I didn't really feel that so much, but But still, there was a feeling we need some help. So I telephoned Maharaj somewhere, I don't know where he was, but I telephoned him and asked him to come. And he just immediately agreed on the spot. I didn't have to explain this and that something else and another thing and problems and what to do and we don't know and, something, save us. But it was just like, there's some problems here. Would you mind? Could you possibly come? And he said, yes. That was it. And he bought his own ticket, bless his heart, and he arrived a few days later. Not weeks later or months later. I think it may have been the next week, but it wasn't more than just, I don't know, a few days later. He arrived in Joburg. I was based in Joburg at the time, and we drove down. Just see, cheapskates. We could have flown him down. It would have been more civilized and cultured or considerate or something. But we drove down. So we saw South Africa at least. We drove down. And we arrived. And anyway, yeah. And Giriraj Maharaj was here. And we had one really wonderful time visiting the houses of many devotees for luncheon programs. Yeah. Programs, preaching and kirtan and so on. And prasadam. Yes. And Maharaj integrated himself immediately. He became accepted so quickly as like a fixture, you could say. He was already a part of the scene. I remember the first class he gave, first program, I can't remember whose place it was. Maybe it was Yamunacharya's place in Reservoir Hills or somewhere. But anyway, wherever it was, first program, of course, he didn't really know South Africa much and the South African Indian population much. But someone, for some reason, unknown to me why, someone suggested it would be nice if he gave the class in Hindi. Can you imagine? If we gave a class in Hindi now, how many of us would understand properly? Not many. But he gave a class in Hindi. Yeah. Anyway, he learned fairly quickly that the Hindis in South Africa don't speak very good Hindi. One boy from India who has spent some time here, and he's like a real Hindi walla. I asked him just a few years ago, what do you think of the Hindi that the local people here speak? And he said, nobody here speaks Hindi. Anyway, that's by the way. So Maharaj really integrated himself into everyone's hearts. Not just officially. Maharaj was not a very official person. He was a very hearty type of person. He wasn't the administrator type, the pen pusher type, like the hands-on controller manager type. He was into relationships and he appreciated devotees so much. So much. So, those of you who are initiated by Maharaj, you're very fortunate. You're really very fortunate. It's a little like I mentioned last night, we had the same program for Giriraj Maharaj last night in Radharanath Temple, and I mentioned how Srila Prabhupada accepted Giriraj Maharaj as a essential associate. He really did. And, they were, Giriraj Maharaj was like a confidant, you could say. Inner circle, real inner circle with Prabhupada, along with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And that says something about Giriraj Maharaj. It really does. That he had certain qualities, and Prabhupada recognized those, so he took him in to his inner circle. With Bhakti Charu Maharaj, the situation is the same, really. I mean, it is the same. And it's even more extraordinary because Bhakti Charu Maharaj only joined ISKCON, at least full time, I don't know, a year before Prabhupada left this world? Or something like that. It was not a long time. But Prabhupada just like that, immediately accepted Bhakti Charu Maharaj as a member of his inner circle, like a confidant. And he kept Maharaj close to him, not just because they're both in a materially sort of technical, material sense, Bengalis. There were other Bengalis. There were other Bengali disciples of Prabhupada. Not a great number, but there was definitely a number of Bengali disciples of Srila Prabhupada already. But none of them had that sort of relationship with Prabhupada at all. They were just kind of, amongst the devotees. But Bhakti Charu Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada immediately accepted him, or very quickly at least, and kept him by his side on an ongoing basis, and gave him a lot of instruction and association. And that means something. It means something. That there's some type of specialness in the relationship, which means there's some sort of specialness in Bhakti Charu Maharaj. So, I think I should finish now, shouldn't I? Yes. He said yes. Finish. I mean, you have to say that. I know you have to say that. Otherwise it would be not so sociable. I know you mean it. But my main thing that I was thinking about is the service and separation, and how it's nectar. It's more nectar than service in the company, physical company. And there's a reason. There's you could say philosophically even, there's a reason that, when you associate with someone physically, you're both living, so to speak, and the usual standards of things, physically alive, then how close can you get? You can embrace. That's as close as you can get. You can embrace very hard, and try and sort of squeeze the person into you. I remember it happening to me once with Bhakti Govinda Maharaj. I was standing at one of the railway crossings, which used to be in Vrindavan, just in Chatikar, that we used to have to stop there because the trains would come by and we had to have to wait. So there I am. I got out. I'm looking up. Where's the train? Where's the train? What's going on? How long are we going to be here? Suddenly 2 arms came from behind me. 2 arms came. They appeared. But so, there wasn't time to look around and see. But these 2 arms were just there. Then they closed around me. And then they really closed around me. Like so hard I couldn't breathe. And then they lifted me off the ground. And then sort of dropped me back onto the ground. And then I was able to turn around and see it was Bhakti Govinda Maharaj. So, you can only get so close in physical terms. But in separation, like I said, we have to internalize. We have to internalize the relationship. And then you see that the person is in your heart. They're actually in your heart. And the external relationship, which there was, it can even be sort of like a distraction. Or anyway, let's not say that, but at least it's not as deep as the relationship within the heart. And in separation, that's what the relationship is. It's a relationship in the heart. And the physical element, it no longer really exists, other than memory. But otherwise, the actual relationship doesn't really exist any longer. It's just 100%, 108% relationship in the heart. And this is why, ultimately, this is why service in separation is more blissful and deeper, more profound, closer, more intimate, and all these types of things. Yes, but we got to kind of break through and get into it and really adjust and really take it in, and then suddenly we realize, hey, it's true. It really is true. So there you go, devotees. There's a few words from me. Sorry to take so long, but it's the next step. I mean, I'm sure some of you are already there and many of you are getting into it, but that's where it's at. Internal relationship in the heart, which is deeper and more blissful, happier than a relationship with the physical element in it. Hare Krishna. Srila Bhakti Swami Maharaj.